Many schools choose to make delivering structured interventions part of a TA's job. Recommendations 5 and 6 give us very clear guidance here over what works.
So recommendations 5 and 6 relate to using TAs to deliver high quality structured interventions. It will typically involve a teaching assistant delivering short, well structured, snappy one-to-one or small group sessions for pupils that are typically struggling with their numeracy and literacy. The teaching assistants will be trained quite extensively, so there'll be 5, 10 hours of training and then some follow-up and support. They'll typically have quite a lot of structured resources, so there'll be lesson plans, there'll be additional materials, there'll be exercises wrapped up with them. And what we found is when we've tested the impact of those interventions compared to business as usual, we're seeing the pupils typically making about 3 to 4 additional months progress on the back of that. What's interesting is when you look at what business as usual is, it's not no interventions going on. So schools are doing interventions, they're using TAs to deliver interventions, but it's really coming down to the quality and the training and the specificity of what's going on in those interventions. So these are well timetabled, there'll be 2 or 3 times a week, they'll be well structured, because they're often very brief, that there'll be 15, 20 minutes. You've got to be very well organised to get the materials across, and because they're very brief, the pupils are not really missing too much of lessons. So you can do them at the end of lessons, sometimes they do them after school or in registration or break. So it's really coming down to not whether you do interventions, but how you do them.
So Diane, we've heard from Dr. Jonathan Sharples about the research around structured interventions. What can you tell us about what that looks like in practice?
Thinking about 2 types of interventions. So the first type may be interventions that the schools have designed themselves because their children need a particular intervention. So it may be that they have a lot of children new to English, or it may be that they've identified a particular gap in a particular subject and they've designed an intervention for themselves. Where that's done well, the teaching assistant is trained well for that, and that intervention is monitored and evaluated rigorously to show that it does have an impact. Where it's an intervention that is tried and tested and recommended by the EEF, that involves high quality training for the teaching assistant. It involves a regular building into the timetable, so regular intervention, short, sharp bursts, and again, evaluated for impact.
Why does evaluation matter so much when it comes to how structured interventions are used?
If an intervention is going to take place on a regular basis, that demands a high percentage of a teaching assistant's time and the children's time. So we have to demonstrate that that has an impact. This must not and can't be about a teaching assistant taking a group of children out and just keeping them busy, or keeping them occupied, or just practicing a skill over and over again. So we have to demonstrate that the children are learning and they making the next steps of development. It's having an impact.
Perhaps the key message here is that structured interventions delivered by TAs work, but that they need to be high quality and, ideally, evidence-based. In the rest of this unit, we'll look at these ideas in more detail. But for now, let me leave you with a question. What are you already doing to monitor the impact of your interventions, and what else could you be doing moving forwards?